Hello and welcome to Picture Astrology. In this quick video, we will talk about placement of Jupiter in the sign of Aquarius, which is another sign which is ruled by the planet Saturn. And it is quite fascinating that one of the sign of Saturn, which is the Capricorn, is considered to be the debilitating sign for Jupiter. Whereas the second sign, which is the Aquarius, is known in most quarters of astrology as a sign which brings about many great qualities of Jupiter to the fore. In fact, there are school of thoughts in parts of India who even consider Aquarius to be the exaltation sign of Jupiter. And this really goes to show that how much amount of nuances and depth each of the sign holds, even though they are ruled by the same planet. But as always in this video, we will try to see from the practical perspective how this Jupiter in Aquarius functions in terms of your physical, mental and psychological well-being, without really worrying about the terms exalted and debilitated. Because the key thing is how exactly a planet's energy works in a given sign, and that should not get lost in the plain terminology. So Aquarius is an airy sign and it is fixed in nature. Obviously it is ruled by Saturn, but a fixed air is supposed to be the peak manifestation of air qualities. The basic nature, if you observe air in general, is to move from one place to another. The dual nature, which is the first sign of air, is the very fundamental nature of air quality. And keeping air fixed in one place is the most advanced representation of air qualities. And if you see the 5 elements which are the building blocks of this entire universe, it all starts from space, the most omnipresent and widely available element, at the same time the most subtle element. The subtlest of all the element is space, which basically means the empty area which contains pretty much the entire universe. It is so subtle that in human life form, or the life on this earth, which the framework of astrology defines, has very little representation of space. And pretty much Jupiter is the only planet which is supposed to have the characteristic of this element. And no other sign or no other planet is ascribed this spatial or spatial qualities, and it is described in many of the Vedic classics that from space, from this omnipresent space, the second element which was derived or which came into existence was air, and then the rest of the elements followed. So this combination, you see, you have Jupiter, which is representative of space element, and Aquarius, which is the peak energy of air sign, and these two together represents an energy which can easily have leanings towards philosophy, higher learning, social good of not just themselves but the entire generation. And unlike the sign of Gemini, Jupiter in Aquarius, they don't get satisfied by quick jokes or short stories or just witty comments. Their mental qualities manifest in long in-depth readings. That is the matter of like PhD, Doctor of Philosophy. And the great thing is that Saturn ownership still provides a tinge of worldly element, meaning their learnings, their logic, their teachings, their philosophies have to be practical. They cannot simply be the matter of mental amusement. And therefore this placement of Jupiter in Aquarius is related to great learnings, people who have pioneering abilities in modern sciences, in new researches, and many similar qualities. But on the negative side, speech is another manifestation of space qualities. And when Jupiter, such a generous planet, is positioned in the highest air quality with Saturn as the owner, many times these people have been found to get into various troubles because of the way they speak. They can be really plain, really blunt, and sometimes quite controversial with their speech or with their communication. And if this placement is associated with, say, second house, and if there is any slight affliction to the second house, then they can end up spending a lot of time in gossiping as well. So that's one thing Jupiter in Aquarius folks really need to be careful about. Now, in terms of physical appearance, if this Jupiter in Aquarius has anything or even remotely related with your first house or Lord of the first house, then it is generally known to give a good physique, a tall and generous appearance, but always a certain maturity is reflected in their behavior as well as in their physical personality. Because Jupiter and Saturn, they both are the oldest planet in Vedic astrology and also the slowest. Obviously, not considering Rahu and Ketu here, but among the physical planets, Saturn and Jupiter, they represents the old wisdom, old customs, and also old age. So therefore, there is always a maturity about their appearance as well as about their behavior. And as I said about speech, this placement also gives a tendency to be like, behave like a teacher or give sermons. Even in their normal talk, when they talk to others, it will come across like they are directing others to do something. It comes because of that innate mature behavior. But unlike Jupiter in Capricorn, which generally is associated with a stout and little bit rustic appearance, the appearance of Jupiter in Aquarius is generally taller and more generous. Now, another important aspect of Jupiter is that it represents your Purvapanyas, or the results of good deeds of your past lives, which basically translates into situations in life where you put less efforts but get a lot of gains. Now, since Saturn is a planet of delay, or the sign of Saturn it is, then whenever Saturn matures, which is in the 36th year, basically after the completion of 35th year, people with this placement generally gets a lot of help from luck after 35, and this is another indication which shows good old age, basically good middle age and very fantastic old age or good name and fame during later part of life. And this is also true because the two signs which Jupiter rules are Sagittarius and Pisces, which are the 9th and the 12th sign. And Aquarius is the 11th sign of the zodiac. So Jupiter is placed in the 11th sign is a little bit challenging position, at least for whichever house the sign of Pisces is placed in, because the 11th sign or the Aquarius is 12th from this, and even from the 9th sign, this is the third position. So if you count from 9, 10 and 11, so this is 1, 2, 3 sign, third sign, and third sign or third house is generally considered to be a weaker placement. Not bad, but a little bit weaker placement. And therefore that 35 year and hence, when Saturn matures, the areas of life controlled by Sagittarius or Pisces, they also help flourish better. Now another thing is that Jupiter's placement here in Saturn sign can make you take life a little bit more seriously, especially if this placement has anything to do with your moon or the 4th house. Then compared to other air sign placements which are more funnier and jolly or more lighter, Jupiter in this Aquarius sign takes well-being and family etc. much more seriously, and thus that can reflect in things like them being really thrifty, them being sort of very cautious about how they spend money. Now obviously, unless this placement is in the 12th house of your horoscope, but in general Jupiter in this sign makes a person little bit conservative in their approach. Now this also makes them worry extra bit about their family and save things for their family, but in other sense they could be really watchful about any kind of spending, plan things much more closely than Jupiter in any other air sign would do. And in similar way, this basic sutra of Jupiter in Aquarius would play out in various aspects of your life. So friends, this was my very quick analysis of Jupiter in Aquarius. We will definitely look at this into more when we talk about each ascendant having this placement. But thank you so much for watching and being with me. I hope to see you again soon. Bye bye.